Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our another special video of what makes a marriage work. Right? Last video we made is about why people are walking away from marriage. Now we want to talk about what actually makes a marriage work and why marriage is actually very important. It's um, this can only make sense. This will not make sense in some philosophical conversations. It will not make sense if you take on some survey and then you're discussing it and what makes a marriage work. No, it's all astrological. That's how I'm basing all of this in. Okay. And it's very simple. And these are some of the things that I've just taught so many of my students on my Nandi Nadi course about what makes a marriage doesn't work, no marriage, and what makes a marriage work. So we're going to discuss today. But first, what makes a marriage work? It always starts with the first of all Desh Kal Patra, meaning the current times that you're living in. Because the type of time that you're living in, sometimes, or you may even say most of the time, a couple stayed married because of the cultural backlash, right? That if he got divorced, what will the culture, and the people around us will think about us? Like, for example, when you watch, even in the 70s American movies like Godfather trilogy, you'll see many occurrences where husband is fighting the wife, even abusing the wife. And then the parents will say, no, don't get involved. That's their life. Yeah, we get that. So it's the time and the society that is wanting to kind of like give birth to something. And then pretty much our society before 2012 was pretty much predicated on the fact that marriage has to be long term, because it's like when a priest, especially in a Western wedding or Christian wedding, says, till death do us apart, which now it just feels like a joke. It's like, okay, you hear the priest say, I'm going to be with you till from sickness to death, and or from sickness to poor to riches, and till death do us apart. And it's never that case. Right? Sometimes you even feel like, why are you even using this line anymore? Because whatever couple is this getting married, within 2 years, they'll be gone. And then the other thing that happens is what has fed to us about marriage. That if you find the right person, if you find that soulmate, that's it. Now marriage is not going to break. Because the marriage that is going to last forever is supposed to start from its perfect path from the first step. From the first step where both of you take a step into your own property. And when things are not working out in the first 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, they're like, oh, no. You're not the perfect person for me. We got to go apart. And this is outside of the context of any kind of abuse, any kind of like extramarital affairs. I'm just talking about those other type of divorces that just falling out of love, this and that. People do not understand. You have to, at minimum, 12 years of marriage is required for you to be even considered husband and wife. Why? Because when you get married, Jupiter is going to be active. Without Jupiter's blessing, you will not get married. But then Jupiter takes 12 years to go through all the 12 zodiac signs to come back to the point when you got married 12 years before. What does this signify? This is pretty much showing that marriage is not some a walk in a theme park. It is not something just all fun and glamour. It is something that the universe says, now that you have come together, I'm going to show you what exactly life is about. See all these 12 houses and 12 zodiac signs? you two are going to have to go through all of these things together, no matter what. So there's like wet season, dry season, extremely hot, spring, fall, then wet season, then dry, 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 dry. So the 12 years is your testing period. But what happens is, most of the time, especially now, test fails. Because you're put through a certain type of grind that just makes you fall apart, and you're like, that's it. I don't need to do this. This house challenge is not for me. I can't win. I can't go through the challenge of this particular house. I'm out. So if you're talking astrologically, minimum 12 years it takes to having this hand and this hand merge together to create a bond. See, when you get married, okay, this is not a bond. It's not a bond. Like, okay, now you're bonded together. No, the bond simply says, okay, you two are now ready. Now walk. Now live this marriage. So first year, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th. And even in 12, the two hands are just like this. Once you go to the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th cycle is where you will find that spiritual bond. You truly understand and respect the spouse only after that particular time period. But once you make it through that first 12 years, this qualifies you that yes, you're qualified and you passed exam to be married. It's kind of like you're qualified now to be a doctor. You're qualified now to be an IAS officer. But just because you're an IAS officer doesn't mean, okay, that's it. You now sit in your office and get all the praises. Now the work begins. So once you're qualified at the 12th year, now you're really starting that work of coming together and making things work. And this is something, it wasn't taught to us. It either just came to us naturally that, okay, I have to keep grinding in this marriage. And then you realize, oh, wait a second. Yeah, now I can't live without this person. Now I can't do anything without the person. It's not going to come in the first year, 2 years, 3 years. So that's one foundation you have to understand. First 12 years is your testing period. And the other thing is this. It is pretty much comes down to every individual chart. How committed are you in your consciousness? Like, no matter what happens, I'm not leaving this person. Or do you have the type of consciousness, okay, if this happens, oh, I'm leaving. Those are my principles. If something happens, if this particular thing is not met, I'm leaving. And this is where you see all these movie scenes and sitcoms and all these soap opera shows that we see on TV. Why? Because what is TV? Television. Tell a vision for people to now ingrain in their subconscious. Without television, without social media, that's when you will truly understand what the marriage is. And of course, the other thing that makes a marriage is the intimacy. Like, how strong is both of your intimacy? And that's one thing. Like, only after now 12 years of my own marriage, and I feel blessed. Like, I don't think anybody can provide me such an amazing intimacy as my wife. Nobody ever did. Nobody can even top that. So I know, like, my intimacy with my wife, it is the best. Whenever, whatever argument there is, whatever fight there is, at the end of the day, what I realize that keeps two people together is when you have very similar core principles about life, about especially divinity, divinity, God, belief system. And this is why, yes, one needs to either clarify this before getting married. But the problem is, sometimes your divinity might increase or change in the middle of the marriage. Like, let's say when I met my wife, I wasn't so spiritual and wanting to do this, do that. I just had this idea subconsciously. But the thing is, that ideology that I had was very much in sync with my wife. And especially when I discovered Yogananda, when I discovered the lineage, it wasn't that the disagreement from the wife came. No, it was like right there that, yes, I'm glad you found him. That went along. How we raise our children, that went along. We raise our children far different than 99% of the couple out there. We have a teacher for our kids. We homeschool our kids. We give them the type of schooling that you wouldn't even learn at their particular age. They're learning about money and business. They're learning different languages at their age. They're learning about like the real practical knowledge. So these principles also become very important. Then what is also out there that makes it extremely important? Well, of course, it's your birth chart. It's what's here. There's certain alignments that now, of course, I can't discuss all the alignments, but I'm going to show you what really saves a marriage and makes a marriage work. Because marriage is not just about living in the same space, paying the bills, paying the mortgage, taking care of the kids, going out for dinner. No, marriage is this bond that has to be felt. Whether it's a complete stranger or whether it was a love marriage, it's a bond that has to be felt right there. And if that bond cannot be felt, this is where then the foundation will always have this small little earthquake. It'll start to have this seismic activity. And one of the most important things that will create your bond, it's not even intimacy. It's not your religious views. You could be married to somebody of a completely different culture and ethnicity, and it's not going to matter. It's not the money even. It is actually both of you having faith in your own divinity. That's what makes a marriage work. It's having faith in your own divinity, because both her divinity and your divinity is going to lead to that same point of the triangle. It is looking beyond the scope of marriage. And especially when what makes a marriage work is that sense of responsibility. Not wanting to escape your responsibility no matter how tough or hard things get. And this is also then is seen through how you were brought up. How did you see your mother and father react to things? What type of things were you watching and observing? Like when I grew up in the 80s and 90s, the type of movies I watched, especially like Hindi movies, it was all about commitment. No matter what, at the end, you're going to be together. And that's what gets ingrained. This is why it is whatever we deal with, our environment plays a big part, especially now, this social media environment. But even then, people make it through. Even then, people have sustainable marriages. So, in a chart, if you know how to read a Vedic astrological chart, now, what is the most important reason, at least for you guys, why marriage is something you may not want to run away from? Two important things. One, money, luxury, wealth. Most of the combinations that you will see in an astrological chart shows only with the arrival of the wife, prosperity, money becomes active. In a female's chart, through the arrival of the husband or having children, money, wealth, prosperity will arrive. And if you don't activate these two things or one thing, and even in a man's chart, even children will show that, okay, this activation has to happen in order for you to get what you want. And this is also the reason why back in the days, you saw mostly poor couples getting married, but then suddenly finding prosperity. Here, what the notion is, unless I am set in my career, I should not approach a girl. Unless I have completed my education and I have set up in my career, I should not think about even getting married or approaching a guy. But then, with whatever the Desh Kalpatra is, it's kind of like feeding you all these different things. Like, maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should do, maybe I shouldn't. So, one thing you want to understand, the money part actually happens after your marriage. So sometimes you shouldn't be afraid of that. The other thing, the thing is, no matter what the social media does, no matter what something does, if the kid is supposed to come through you, they will come through you. If you are to get married, you're going to get married. Come hell or high water, your free will not be there to stop it. The second thing is this: marriage is the biggest karma you will pay in any lifetime you come into in order for you to progress towards your moksha. Because 7th house is probably the highest karmic house, because it's 10th from the 10th. And the karma of the 7th house, which is the 4th house, represents moksha. Only when that is completed, you find your peace. Otherwise, you can skip this lifetime. No worries. You are going to have to come with that person at some lifetime. Now, in next lifetime, you might be destined with someone else. You may want to escape that. But at one point, that back interest is going to keep calculating and keep getting bigger and bigger. And especially you will see in certain rituals, even in spiritual rituals, they will only require couples to be present in order to be part of a certain ritual. Whether it's tantra, something, you will see that only couples are allowed. Nothing to do with cultural thing, it's to do with science of Shiva and Parvati. I'll have to make my additional notes in order to tell you this. I'm just giving you a very small tidbit information on that. So there's an actual dharmic purpose behind marriage. In order for those spiritual, you to find Shiva, Shiva has to have Parvati. And the other is, hey, what do you want? You want money, luxury, wealth. There's going to be a price to pay to get that. And the price of that ticket is going to be marriage. In certain cases, you don't need that. But I don't want to discuss those combinations here. That'll make it easy. Because then you might be running away from your karma. But yeah, there are charts. People make big money without marriage. But then there are charts over and over again. So marriage. Do marriage. Money will come. You're thinking that the stress of inflation, this and this is there. You do this. Doesn't matter about the inflation. When you get the money, Inflation could be high. You're going to get what you want. That's what it is. Now, let's go back to our chart, the actual analysis. So, let's see from an astrological perspective what are some of the things that we see in terms of what makes something committed. And there's so many of these things out there, so many steps. They're very simple, but there are many, many ways to look at it. So, I'm going to show you some of the ways. So, of course, this is a Vedic astrological chart, and the very first house we call it, okay, the ascendant. Ascendant, and these are the houses: first house, second house, third house, fourth house, fifth house, sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house, 12th house. These are 12 houses because they're correlating with the 12 zodiac signs. So each zodiac signs pretty much represents a certain house. You can simply look at how simple is that? You got 12 boxes, 12 zodiac signs. But the first thing we see is the house of commitments. What are the two things that are very strong or important for seeing the commitment within the marriage in an individual chart? And let me just say this: horoscope matching will not give you any commitment. You can spend $1 million, go to the best astrologer, and do the horoscope matching. Doesn't mean anything. Why doesn't it mean anything? Because you're only going to marry that is assigned in your chart. You're only going to marry that particular individual. Anybody else somehow will not work out. Even to the day of the marriage, you can go and will not work out. And I've seen these too many cases. I've done thousands and thousands of readings with marriage. Okay. So the first thing is this: the seventh house. Seventh house becomes the very first house we look for that commitment of marriage. Second would be, let's just say, Venus. Venus, let's say, is in the ninth house. I'm just randomly putting the Venus, planet Venus somewhere. These are the two things that the first step to seeing the commitment. And what brings that glue that, okay, there is going to be this commitment, it's going to be Jupiter. Jupiter becomes that glue. We call it the prana, the breath, the blessings, but I will make it much easier. It's the glue that keeps things together. So if in a particular chart, Jupiter aspects the seventh house, and let's say at the same time Jupiter looks at Venus, this is a glue to keep the marriage together. Will keep the marriage together. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing would be if even one of them is being aspected by Jupiter. So let's say, for example, if Jupiter was here, Jupiter, whoa, that's a big fat Jupiter, which, of course, that's how Jupiter is. But let's say this is Jupiter. So Jupiter is now looking at Venus. This also becomes another step towards seeing that, okay, there's this blessings of that commitment. One of the more powerful placement is this: Jupiter looking at Venus and Venus looking at Jupiter. Now there's going to be commitment and duty. Commitment and duty. So this is also one of those particular placements. The other thing, this is both for men and women. Now also, let's say, for example, we had Mars here. Okay. And let's say this was a female chart. And let's just say here's Jupiter in the third house. But Mars becomes eighth from Jupiter. Venus is seventh from Jupiter. So Jupiter is blessing Venus that yes, you're going to be committed. But will you find that camaraderie with the husband? That would be missing. So you see, there's these different levels of seeing that commitment and camaraderie. Now, let's do another thing. Let's say, for example, this Jupiter was retrograde. This is a female chart. Jupiter is in the third house, retrogrades, is looking at Venus. So what is happening? Not only here's Jupiter, but now Jupiter switches itself into the second house as well, because it's going backwards, retrograde. So here Jupiter now blesses Mars. It looks at Mars from its ninth aspect. And it's also looking at Venus. And what happens with retrograde Jupiter, it goes back and forth. Commitment is there, then love is there, but then the commitment goes away, then it comes back. It always keeps moving back and forth. So now this becomes one of those particular marriages where you will see they fight constantly, but it's never going to be that point of that's it, done. No, this Jupiter just keeps that cycle going back and forth. It's like a pendulum. Jupiter swinging. When it's here, you're like, oh, okay, now I see, okay, this is it. This is not good. And it comes back, okay, yeah, this is good. Okay, yes, I love you. And it goes back, oh, this is not good. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's just swinging back and forth. That's what this Jupiter's retrograde is. Okay, so that's that. Then, for example, Mars. And then Mars is with Sun. It's a female's chart. Mars is with Sun. And let's say you have the same Jupiter. So now what happens? Mars is who? The husband. And what does Sun represents? Commitment. The husband is going to be committed. So when you see this Sun right in front of Mars, the husband's going to be committed no matter what, because now soldier is following the directions of the king, and soldier will die first before it disobeys the commands of the king. And since we are on this 10th house thing, let me also just say this to you guys. Where do we see the happiness of marriage? Okay. What brings the happiness of the marriage? So let me show you this. Let's just say you had Rahu in the 7th house. Many people will look at this and say, oh, no peace in marriage, no happiness in marriage. Marriage is going to be confusing. Marriage is going to be this, there's going to be that, there's going to be this. But again, I ask, where is the happiness of the marriage? The happiness of the marriage is actually the 10th house. Why is it the 10th house? Because 10th house is 7th or 4th from the 7th house. So this is you, the ascendant. This is you. And your 4th house is your mother, comfort, happiness, nourishment. So 4th house represents our happiness. So happiness of anything will be seen through any house. So we're seeing the happiness of the 7th house. Happiness of 7th house will be seen through 10th house and planets sitting there, and what is or where the Lord has gone. That will provide the happiness of the marriage. Then second thing, what is the commitment? How would you see the commitment of the marriage? Like, okay, no matter what, even if, let's say, no happiness is there, will there be commitment? Which house will you see for commitment? You're going to see the fourth house, which is 10th from the seventh house. Because 10th house is government. When you go into government office, right, you behave, you wear the right clothes, you go into a courtroom. What do? You wear a suit, at least something to present yourself in front of the judge. When you are a government worker, you have to show up on time. You can't come in late. You can't take a little bit of money or bribes or nothing. You can't go to foreign lands without telling the government why you're going to foreign lands. What is the purpose? Is this for business? Is it for leisure? Who you're going to be meeting? What type of people are you meeting? Because you're working for the government. You are absolutely committed to their rules, laws, and policies. So the commitment comes through the fourth house of the marriage. So when you have planets like Sun, Jupiter, Mars, and even Saturn, these planets will represent the commitment. And these planets would also show, especially in terms of the happiness, Sun and Mars. If either one of them are in the 10th house. Why? Because 10th house is where Mars loves to show. They are happy when they're putting that uniform on and going out there wanting to guard the border, wanting to help the government, wanting to help save the people of the country. So these two planets will actually give happiness. Now, sure, on the other areas, it'll do really bad. For example, if you have this Mars and Sun there, you may have issues with your tenants. That's besides the point. We're focusing on marriage only. And again, this is not something that, okay, verbatim, you can just say this to someone. It comes through experience and understanding of the planets, that what is happening. Okay. For example, let's just clear this out. So we know these houses, right? This is our birth chart. Okay. When you see Venus, hair, 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 including hair. These are the position where Venus is going to be the most committed. Meaning the marriage, not the wife. We're not looking at the wife or the husband. We're simply looking at the planet that represents unionship. The union of something, coming together of something. These are going to be the houses that are going to be the most important. Some houses may not be, some houses are a little wobbly, but these are going to be the most important houses. When you're seeing for that commitment, are you going to be committed? At the same time, when it comes to zodiac signs, okay, when it comes to the zodiac signs of commitment, it's going to be the sign of Leo, Aquarius, Capricorn, Libra, Sagittarius. These five signs are connected with absolute commitment, because this is the house of the king. When the king gives its word, that's it. No contracts needed, nothing. If king said it, it will happen. 7th is legal contracts. You can't lie on legal contracts. Once it's signed, that's it. Now you're bound. That legal contract is signed. This represents your dharma. This represents your desire to carry on the commitment of the lineage, commitment of the paternal lineage. Like paternal lineage, let's say your last 6 generations served in the Marines or in the army. And so now it becomes your dharma to do that because they fought for the country and now you feel that patriotism. This is naturally the government where everything takes place. This is your workplace. Work. Your work tells you you have to be here at the office at 7 a.m. in the morning. You show up at 9. First day, okay. Second day, what's going on? Third day, they won't. Your key card won't even work. You can't just come to work anytime you want, unless it's your business. So unless it's your business, then you come in. And then 11th, why the sign of Aquarius is the sign of giving. Aquarius is a sign of humanitarian work, being in service. So you will see some husband and wife feel like I need to be in service to that other person. The world will look at it in a very different light. Like, why are you like this? Why are you subservient to your husband, or why are you subservient to your wife? That's the world's problem. You are feeling like I just want to serve things. I want to serve people. I want to serve my spouse, and I want to serve my children. This is why Aquarius, as much as this is a sign of eccentricity, right? We use the word Sankey with Aquarius, including even Scorpio to a certain extent, but Aquarius is that number one. So in these particular places, you will see there's going to be this absolute commitment. And then the other thing you have, and even the signs, the houses will also matter. Even whatever the sign is, but if the planet like Venus is sitting in one of these particular houses, that particular house will also be the house of commitment. And especially when Jupiter looks at it, now you've got a concrete foundation. See, one thing you have to understand about these other signs. So let's say for these signs, okay, these are the signs that are dual natured. Dual sign. This is also the dual nature sign, but it's one of the highest of dharma signs. Number 9, remember, we don't even use it in certain numerology. We don't even use number 9. We leave it alone. We're like, this is the God's number. That's why faith and religion are seen from this 9th house. But see, these are the houses of, first of all, being a child. These are the houses of being a child. This is the house of ecstasy with the other world. It's like telling Yogananda, get married. And here, this is where Yogananda, all your yogis reside. How much more committed they will be when they want to seek that higher thing. You will see when, especially planet like Mars, Venus, okay? Mars and Venus. So this is the, Pisces sign. You will see when planets like Mars and Venus are sitting here, whether together or no, Pisces could be in your 8th house, they could be sitting there. They will always they will feel a bit lost. It's like they will be in their own world regarding commitment of the marriage or dealing with marriage or anything in life. They will be committed. Like, for example, if Jupiter is here, you bet they will be committed. But there's also this thing about it's like they will feel their half, the soul is leaving the body half, and half of the soul is in the body. So they're there observing. Yes, I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a daughter. I'm a manager, I'm an employee, I'm a lawful citizen. But then the other side is like, okay, this is enough, this is good. And that's where the soul is. And I'm not saying that's really it is. I'm just kind of metaphorically showing you how they will feel. It's like there's back and forth. This person swings. And so it's kind of like there's this blurriness to them, like fading, like a transparency around them. Like, are you really here? I've been talking and talking. Are you really here? Like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. So this is one of those things. Then there's these two particular signs, this one and this one, number 6. It needs stimulation. There always has to be stimulation in order for anything, not just marriage, but relationship or any business, any work, to survive with an individual. It's like a child who's playing a game and they're so immersed into it and they're having fun. They're outside with the friend. But after 2, 3 hours, they're like, okay, I'm bored. Let's go play video games. Now they want to go inside and they want to play video games, but they want to keep that stimulants going. And after the video game, okay, let's watch a horror movie or let's watch a action movie, right? Let's watch a Rambo movie. I'm pretty much talking about my own childhood here, right? And all of us who were Generation X, somewhat millennials as well. So is that stimulants that needs? But again, even there it'll work. Why? Because who's the glue? Jupiter. Jupiter is the glue. Now what won't make the marriage work? I've already shown that. Okay, but then there's also these other things. Oh, okay, I've only got like 6 minutes left on my. Yeah, I got 6 minutes left. So